Hi, Manu.
Hey Mark, how
Hey,
you doing?
good. Um, yeah, I saw your email about like the one you sent, but I was on vacation last week. I'm still catching up.
No worries. It's just I think we're getting at out of place. That's very interesting. The convergence of all the thinking and all the pieces are coming together. And yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I forwarded that to
On your
the
end, I see conversions. On every other end, I see
yes,
bifurcation in a million directions, and
yes,
I'm having a really hard time integrating.
yeah,
Like it's like feel like every day there is another proposal, especially with agents. I feel there is another proposal that tackles something, but then neglects something else and
yeah,
addresses someone's pet problem or idea. And I was
yeah.
just
The
gonna.
the agent stuff is insane. It's all over the place.
It's yeah. Uh,
Again, I mean, anyway,
but like normally what happens is all of this should converge on some kind of a layered architecture. Hank, how are you?
I agree. Hey, Hank.
Hi there. Sorry, we are mumbling to mute here. Okay.
All right. Um, Okay, so I want to just let's start with a couple of like sort of silly administrative things. Um, Let me start by sharing my screen. Just before the meeting started, I noticed there is a couple of new drafts. Um, there is Whimsy applicability for AI agents. I have not yet reviewed it, but I just want to see if they say anything that's antithetical to us or whatever. And then there is the carrying remote attestation evidence and workload identity tokens. This is new. I haven't noticed it, but there's an informational draft, and um this definitely impacts what we're trying to do. So again, I'm yet to review this. I may need to put it on next week's agenda. Wanted to draw your attention also. So in the um, reference architecture. There is now the section. This is what added. I alluded to it, but here's the actual text and just want to draw your attention to it. So this is the reference architecture for Whimsy. And then section 331, now there is a bootstrapping section. So how do you going to bootstrap workload identifiers and credentials? Notice that we use the words provision and acquire. This just uses bootstrapping. And it uses a few, like has a few different paragraphs, but now it uses attestation as well. It makes a reference to RFC 3994, and it also says that attestation as Whimsy is intentionally defined quite broadly. So notice they're not using a remote attestation necessarily, except in reference to this RFC. Now, I encourage folks to read this and just make sure that it doesn't hide some subtle bug that would make life difficult for us specifically later. So again, I'm just highlighting this here. Okay, so Hank, first of all, because we're now in mid-April, I would like to start by talking to you about what happens in the IETF land, broadly defined, with respect to our work in the next couple of months before, like, when is the submission deadline, do you know, uh, for the Vienna IETF?
I can look it up. It's an important date, so it's noted somewhere. Sorry, not somewhere.
Should we just look it up right
Um,
now?
yeah, if you Google IETF important dates, you get to that immediately.
Oh yeah.
Um, and
Okay.
so the internet cutoff is in July somewhere. Cut off.
Um,
Am I in the wrong ITF? No. Yeah, I'm in the Shenzhen ITF. Okay, the important dates have not been updated. What? What?
Is it IETF
Why?
126 we're talking about?
Yes, but
There we go.
important dates are is an absolute URL with no IETF. It's multiple now. Okay, that's interesting. So they have three IETF things, and the past one is also there. That's confusing. This is new. The new cutoff date is on July 6th. It's always a Monday midnight UTC.
July 6th. Okay.
And meanwhile, you were asking me to transplant the Google Doc thing into an RSC thing, and this took me a long time. And I want to hand off the baton for doing this, to be honest.
Mhm.
I put in the chat the current version.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
it in GitHub?
Yes,
Okay.
I put it in the chat. Yeah, in
Oh, I
this
see. Hold on.
Zoom.
Let me take it out of the chat and put it into the meeting minutes.
You really have to reconsider using the tables for the steps and the notes, and maybe not call them notes. I tried not to do any editorial changes. It was impossible on the abstract in the intro. Abstracts can't have references. So a few of the references are now dangling. If you click, if you scroll, oh, yeah, this is now an editorial thing and also a rephrasing thing to some extent. So we can call it bootstrapping to be more clear. There's editor's copy link here,
Mhm.
and we had to decide on a title. So it's trustworthy workload identities. That's not a title. This is just a working approach. Sometimes to fix the title. In theory, it would say trustful workload identities for workloads, tralala, whimsy profile for replica workloads. So if you expand all, the term workload would appear three times in the titles. I was like, nah, that doesn't work. So I gave up midterm, and this is the placeholder title
Yeah.
right now. So that
Well,
doesn't work.
we'll figure something out. Now, do you believe
Exactly.
that this needs this is probably going under the Whimsy working group, right? Not rats.
I don't know. This is rats for now, but this is also a I didn't know where it goes because Whimsy doesn't do remote attestation,
Right.
so I don't know. Look at the editor's copy. There's a link. Then you can see how this is basically the try document. The bulk of my time went into creating the first sequence diagram.
Mm-hmm.
There's a link called editor's copy in the README below.
I
There are
see.
four blue links in the README. And no, very below. You can't see them anymore. Okay, now you're clicking on. Okay, you can also go from there.
Where would you like me to click? Sorry.
Go one back. There's always the same layout of an into the draft repo. And if you scroll down,
Yes. Do I go to individual draft or I can't hear you, Hank?
Yeah, we lost him.
Okay.
Hank, we cannot hear you.
Okay. That happens. Yeah, I'm
you
curious.
see
Oh,
the README. It was always rendered.
hey, Hank, you disappeared. We haven't heard you for the last minute or so.
Yeah, sorry, you lost me. So there is a link. You can see it right now. It's called editor's copy. Exactly. And this renders the current version.
Okay.
So yeah, this is basically stuff I put in. I put new references in. I made a little editorial on the things. There a lot of things were capitalized in the text that
Mm-hmm.
were not introduced, and that maybe we should put into the terminology. You also cannot use capitalization before introducing the terms in the terminology. So that's a little bit of a
Right.
pen and
I
egg
thought we
problem.
were careful with that, but okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of things above. So, for example, verifier is capitalized and before it's
Right.
introduced. So again, I decapitalized some of it already, But a Whimsy server also is not a thing. I looked it up. It has to be more specific. A Whimsy
Yeah, it's a
component.
SPIFFE thing. Yeah, it's a SPIFFE thing.
Yeah, but when we refer to the Whimsy spec, it has to be a Whimsy thing, I assume.
Right,
So
right,
just a small nit. I think my most. This is just. I started some editorial stuff, but it was just so much that I was okay. I'm not editing this. I'm just transforming this. So
right.
if you scroll down a little bit, yeah, here you can see my attempt at a sequence diagram.
Yeah. And you used there was some sort of a tool, right, that we can use to draw these
It's called
things.
ASCII art.
ASCII art. Okay.
This is ASCII art, and it's automatically transformed into SVG via a tool. So here's a first table. These tables are simple because they're just paragraphs.
Yes.
That works okay, I guess. It's still not super cool, but it's okay. The
Hmm.
second diagram I didn't plan to. It was just too much. And then we have more complex tables coming up lower, and these, yeah, they aren't cool. So maybe I've not used tables here. I fixed the first few rows, like until four, and then I didn't want to anymore. So these are unfixed copies, and that's why it looks
Okay,
so
so just
bad.
it needs additional work, and I understand that it's a lot of work
Yeah,
for you. So you're looking
yeah,
for somebody to
exactly.
pick up the.
So
Okay. Now, look, I guess the biggest help you can provide, is not the mechanical part, but more like guidance in how to introduce this to IETF and how to. I guess the goal, right, ultimately is some form of an industry adoption, right? Like words on paper only take you so far, right? So maybe as an RFC, ideally as an RFC, but I want to anticipate what people might say about it, uh, and how to best coach it for presentation. Because let me add one other thing. It may be one structure of this idea when presented to the Computational Computing Consortium, because this is people interested in adoption of confidential computing, and it's another thing to present it to rats, which is more well, again, like it may need to be coached somewhat differently for that audience, and you know that audience way better than we do.
so in order to get adoption anywhere, you need adopters, like industry support.
Okay.
So best case scenario, you have a few friends in the room that want this.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's basically it. I want to say like two, three hyperscalers are nice, and then a few like Hashmesh probably is there, and Fraunhofer can be there, and although I'm currently, yeah, also I didn't know all the authors. It just put you first, and then me because I was editing it. So I'm not sure who's actually working on this. That was also
Yeah.
unknown to me at that point.
Right. So you're
And so,
saying
but for
having
adoption,
having a like a RATS native in the authors would be helpful.
no, it doesn't don't have to be. Rats native is fine. That really helps, but it should be like not more than half of it. The others should be like real. I don't know, the Cisco's and Thales people of the world that want something here, right? If you have support from those, I mean, JP Morgan might have nice partners who want this. If they can voice adoption and vendors' interest
Hmm.
and support,
Yeah.
that's basically the win. So then you don't need a lot. You don't even need implementation. You just need the idea that this is going to be implemented for adoption in the end.
Okay.
So that
Now,
is the
when you say friends in the room, so what does that like? There is going to be a meeting.
ah
Presumably, there is a draft presented. Then what?
yeah okay. So that's a very excellent question. So the actual decision of adoption is done on the email list.
Hmm.
And before you get adopted, you have to float the idea. You have to have a nice readable draft, and then highlight in the working group that you are interested in to get this adopted in. So, hi, we did this. What do you think? We presented this and this already. This is now our result for this working group. It's concise. It has two methods, and it's relatively straightforward. We want to inch forward to trustworthy workload management and workload operations in the end, and yada yada. So that
Hmm.
is something I guess you would post on the list, and then your friends already reply. You garnered some initial support, and then over the next week people chime in
Hmm.
and voice, oh, this looks nice. Yeah, this also looks like the correct place. And that is, of course, only if they're comfortable with that. You don't do this
Yes,
advertisement if it doesn't make sense, right? It has to be a consensus in a smaller group of proponents, and then you can gain traction in the working group, and others might agree with those notions. And then basically you can at some point address already feedback if you get some openly, and if not, you can directly go to working group adoption question to the chairs.
I see. Now, all of that, the timing of that is presumably after the July meeting, or is it before?
Not necessarily. So I would mold this into shape as soon as possible and
Hmm.
then publish, like submit. But I think the real question is what working group. So as you can see, Peter had this new Whimsy attestation draft, and I don't know actually what it does, to be honest.
Yeah, hold on. So this Whimsy, I'm trying
So
to figure out which of these.
yeah, so yeah, exactly. So this is yeah, which I highlighted before. Like I assumed that we would just put evidence or AR in a width, but that topic didn't really took root, and now Peter wrote it.
Okay, but is it like I don't see it on this page? Am I?
It's directly highlighted. Why? What?
Oh, this is the one
Yeah, this
in
is
view.
where evidence is in a width. I was highlighting that a width could potentially be an eat. We discussed that.
Ah, okay.
Oh, it's not Peter. Maybe I'm mistaken. I have to go to the data tracker. It's too many, too few Chinese last names. Then
I
this
see,
is
Rujin. Okay. Well, this one we're probably going to review for next time just to see, does it take us in a new direction that we now need to worry about? Okay. For the meeting minutes, I'm basically saying, um, polish the draft ASAP, solicit uh, friendlies, I guess I'll just call it, from likely major adopters, both CSPs, Mash, customers like JPM, etc. I'm just taking rough notes here. So, um, okay. Uh, Adoption is decided on the presumably RATS mailing list, right?
yeah. For example, so this is really is a problem. So I think the Whimsy ID was cut into four pieces to enable easier extension. So we don't have the problem of getting into a right place there.
Yeah.
But I also heard the notion that they do not want to deal with remote attestation at this point of time. So
In
I'm a
Whimsy?
little bit, yeah. But yeah, so I don't know actually. We have to come back to Peter or someone that is a chair, I guess.
Hmm. But here we're saying we'll do this under the auspices of rats. And so here's again,
Yeah.
Whimsy very correctly wants to stay far from um, the whole credential bootstrapping. They want to focus on what the credential expresses and how the credential is used. So this is all post bootstrapping stuff. So that is good because we don't want Whimsy to necessarily. We want Whimsy to be compatible with this idea, but not be the um, you know um, not be another rock we need to move. But I like to my mind, Rats does care about this because Rats, I think, cares about adoption of confidential computing. Like an adoption means how is it deployable and how is it manageable, and that the drum I've been beating for a while, basically saying, look, there is a lot of good stuff in Rats, like CBOR and just all sorts of things, but none of those lend to easy adoption and adoption my theory lies through workload identity. So that is basically that's the core message I want rats to hear. And then this is why we care about this particular draft. Now the words in the draft may change, but the core idea behind it, again, the fact that we need to tie attestation to identity and make it deployable in the cloud. That is what I really need. I really need rats to hear that message and heed it and help with getting us there. Or if they believe that this is an incorrect assertion, we can debate that. So again, Hank, I want to hear your thoughts on what I just said.
So this is really a sitting between all the chairs work, the literal chairs work. If you look at the diagram in the draft again, I think you can see pretty much what actors are there. And the sequence diagram that I started, which is the only one that actually looks kind of okay. So now we have here Red's attestation results. So somehow we get attestation results in the mix here. And that is on the workload owner side. So I'm not entirely sure how a human does that. So then we have establishing whatever entity that exists that now is the manager of the workload. I don't know, a secure channel. I think authenticated secure channel is a oxymoron. It's basically a secure channel is always mutually authenticated. So that's the nature of a secure channel.
Yeah.
And then that's very interesting here. We have CSR. So we have CSRs augmented with evidence already in LAMPS. So we can augment a certification signing request with evidence. It's the working group last call in LAMPS.
Yeah.
So if that is a building block we want to use here, then we have to really understand what other components do we reuse. If it's basically all AS1 stuff and PKIX stuff, LAMPS would be a nice place. But I don't think so because I made this decision here, a vote WIC, not WIT, because I actually don't know which kind of credential is used here. I think the document wants to, so the Whimsy workload creds ID talks about two things. It calls about workload identity token and about a workload identity credential. I think
Mhm.
one is just a web token, the other one is a classic AS1 XF9, I assume. So now I don't know what type of credential we want to use. Both is one of it. I just chose the as we do a CSR and CSR for XI9
Okay.
certificates.
Okay. I see what the
Yeah,
confusion is. Hank, if
yeah,
you just allow me. So
sure.
if you go into the Troy profile, this says workload identity and the attestation result. So this one does
Yeah,
not provide a credential or a token. This is simply the identity. So it's basically a string like an SVID
that means nothing to me, to be
or a
honest. What does it
subject
mean?
name. So, okay.
Subject name.
So workload identity would be the string Hank Burkholz. It would not be Hank's passport. It would not be Hank's token. It would not be any proof.
Then it's an
Like
identifier.
it's just an identifier, workload identifier.
Yeah. Okay. See, and that is why I couldn't translate it. It was also too much text for the diagram, so I had to kind of collapse it. And
Hmm.
that's but the decision I made was identity typically means identity document, and you probably don't I mean a token when you have a CSR. So
Okay.
that is why I'm coming from here. So again, this needs polishing on the integer
Yeah.
draft side, because as you can see, I might have made wrong editorial
Yeah,
optimizations
no,
here.
this is actually an identification. Sorry, it's a terminology confusion that probably needs to be fixed on our side here, because we
Okay.
defined workload identity the same way you define workload identifier, and we just need to change our like there is not a problem for us to basically say, yeah, it's really our workload identity would always be an identity document, and we're all here we're just simply just deciding what the workload identifier is going to be.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so this has to be cleaned up then a little bit, and based on the building blocks we are using in these diagrams, we can choose where to go.
Hmm.
If attestation results, so there's no evidence involved here. It's always attestation results. That makes it less of a RATS working go document, because attestation results are the output, the ultimate output of the remote attestation procedures, and thereby then all the work of RATS is already done. We just use the output. This would make it more of another working groups document, I think. If we are conveying evidence, in contrast, it very much involves the whole appraisal procedures and all the RATS rules, and would make it very much a RATS document. So I think that's a
Yes.
fundamental decision.
Okay. So, in the terms of the original document and the diagrams in it, evidence is the first time the word evidence enters this document is in the acquisition phase. So the credentials already been pre-computed, and now the workload is trying to obtain the private key necessary to use it. And for that, it will generate the evidence, go to the verifier that will appraise the evidence, compute attestation results, and return them. No RATs change here. This is standard uh, passport model, right? And then effectively what it does is here are your attestation results, and these attestation results, the stuff in step 7 right here, they just need to match to the attestation results that are pre-computed here in step 2, right? So the idea is
Yeah.
the workload owner needs to effectively guess based on its own policies and what attestation results would be produced by the verifier when it sees a certain evidence. And that is perhaps the RATS discussion, right? Because like I guess the question to RATS would be how realistic is it to standardize a procedure by which a workload owner, in this case, having access to what the workload owner believes would be the evidence generated by a workload during attestation, uh, you know, how can it guess what the attestation results would be for that
Um,
workload, such that the workload can then get the key material that it needs? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if I'm following, and unfortunately, I have to drop at the bottom of the hour today because I have a conflicting event that I can't move.
Okay.
Um, I'm sorry. So I put most of my effort into creating the ID. Maybe cleaning that up is a
Hmm.
good thing. I have to gift it to somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh, where, because at the moment it's in my domain in GitHub. It's just
Hmm. Okay.
that's not very helpful. Where should I move it to? Should I gift it to the CCC or to you? I don't know.
Well, look, I will find it an owner. If I can just ask you that you put it in a place where the owner can pick it up from, and that can be under CCC. I mean, if we're allowed to submit drafts to the IETF from our own GitHub repo in the consortium, then yeah, let's just put it in there.
Yeah, it depends
I'll
on the
email you the link. I
CCC.
know you need to drop. I'll email you the
Yeah.
link to our GitHub repo, and you can just put it in there, and then we'll take it over from there.
Okay.
And the question that you did not just understand that I was trying to formulate, I will put that on the mailing list also, so you can get to it when you can.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
And we
Thank
are
you so
meeting
much.
again. Sure, yeah. So sorry for my lack of time, but at least there's a corpus of things to polish now, and
Yes.
one
No,
diagram
it's
basically is a good template for the second diagram. Yeah.
yeah, it's very valuable. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. So,
Okay,
thank
thank you,
you.
Hank.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so we understand what needs to be done. Let me just document what we just discussed. A question for rats. Uh, how can a workload owner un you know, anticipate AR for a given workload that hasn't started yet? Okay, that may be the question for rats, based on sort of what rat needs to do. Because again, what I heard Hank say is, what we need to focus on the things that are different from rat's perspective, and attestation results once generated, that kind of leaves the rat's domain. Okay. All right. So at this point in time, I'll probably just have to sort of say the kinds of things we're going to review for next meeting, because I unless somebody speaks up, I cannot think of anything else we need to decide today. But we have this new draft for workload identity tokens carrying remote attestation evidence. So we need to figure out if that takes us in a drastically new direction that we need to at least comment and think what that's about. Uh, I would like to keep an eye on agentic identity, because the drafts I've seen so far seem to also fall into bearer token trap. I think it's just kind of lack of imagination almost, that everyone just assumes that bearer tokens are the way to go. And of course, if that becomes a standard, then confidential agents will become impossible from the workload identity perspective, or less than secure or whatever. So um, that would worry me. Manu, anything else you want to add right now?
I I'm moving away or not really getting involved in the ATF stuff because I think, and especially the Whimsy, I mean, rats remains the place I think where we need to focus our energy.
Yeah,
The what I wrote about and shared with you is that we literally the design uh, how to say that the design approach has to be fundamentally different if you start from a weak security posture like a conventional workload that you try to test and verify after the fact with whatever other weak mechanism. And then there's us, which we start with the strongest security posture possible,
right.
hardware backed cryptographic material that is immutable and can be remotely attested. And
Yes.
really, the realization, I think, to me, and that thanks to you and the discussion about supply chain, is really the relying parties' ability to just have the same level of assurance that you have at the chip level all the way through the entire verification chain. And
Yeah.
so that difference in starting points, I think, yeah, so to achieve to enable the relying party to make this a decision that has a strength that is comparable or very close to what could be achieved at the chip level requires that every single element in the verification chain and the transmission of, you know, what is it, reference values, endorsement values, and all that be itself strong. And so to me, that's the chasm here. And the fact that Whimsy doesn't want to tackle remote attestation right now, I think it's because they realize that it's orthogonal to everything that they're doing. You need to approach the entire chain and make sure that the entire chain preserve the strength, the cryptographic strength of the chip. So it's really an exercise in trying not to degrade the strength of the verifiability of the confidential computing chips, as opposed to try to add stuff to already weak attestation, in conventional workloads, and then try to add stuff to strengthen it along the way.
Yeah.
So I'm losing interest in trying to convince the Whimsy guys. I think Rats is the place where it needs to be. The challenge or
Yes.
the issue that I have with Rats is that they've said all along that they are, I mean, they trying to scope it in a way that they only focus on, the direct local surroundings of the chip, if you want, as opposed to approaching the problem from full system design, saying, oh, the relying party perspective, which you have brought to the table, saying how, remotely, how do you just get all the benefits of confidential computing? And RATS is not really tackling that. Maybe we should bring that up and just say, we should increase the focus on how do we convey the cryptographic strength of confidential computing all the way through to the relying party,
Yeah.
without weakening it along the way.
Okay. So
So that's my
no,
perspective.
I mean it's absolutely valid. Now, I basically this is where I think this lands. So Whimsy needed what they did, which I'm very, very glad they did. That basically saying, look, we're out of the bootstrapping. We're just going to, roughly mention bootstrapping, but we're out of the bootstrapping business. We are squarely in the usage business of credentials. And my engagement with Whimsy is effectively keeping them honest and keeping them to that promise. And I think that is going to be important going forward because they keep dipping their toes in the bear token land. Okay. So I also agree with you that rats is scoped in a way that makes the relying party considerations difficult. And I think bringing their continued attention to that is where where probably this conversation is most appropriate. So that will continue. Yours is the most valiant attempt I've seen to do it right. We'll see, how to make it stick. I mean, I'm certainly your ally in that. And finally, uh, how to pull it all together remains a challenge, and I think a very key part of that is what Hank said. Like, how do we get friendlies in the room? How do we get the hyperscalers to start treating this as not a one-off that they solve, just for their ecosystem, and then how well remains to be seen, but really consider that an industry must. I guess
Right.
how I see it. So for that, I will back channel with folks I know at Google, at Microsoft. I think Amazon's probably going to go its own way. They don't seek to participate, but maybe they'll notice and do something if the rest is successful. Right. And then also customers, like large customers like ourselves pushing for it
Yeah,
may
I
help.
actually, that's something that I think, when I wrote this over the past week or so, the document I sent you, but I think it's your arrival, it's JP Morgan's arrival at the CCC that suddenly just brought a completely different perspective. If there were other relying party companies like JP Morgan, if you can back channel and have those folks come to the CCC, I
Like, you
think
mean
that
from
would
from
help.
other large customers, right?
Yeah, yeah, relying parties. I mean, it's all about the relying party. The issue, what we are missing is this relying party perspective,
Right.
because you are, many steps removed from the production of evidence. I mean, you have the strongest engine to produce evidence at the chip level, hardware-based, cryptographic material that can be expressed and conveyed. But then it's the conveyance of that cryptographic strength all the way through to the relying party that is not being tackled. Nobody is, I mean, it's amazing the trust dependency graph, all the pieces that you have to actually trust to be able to have, to make a trust decision at the relying party stage is just ludicrous. We've
Right.
diluted basically the entire value proposition of confidential computing is diluted because of all the other things that you need to trust to rely on that verification. So,
Right.
so the more we have relying parties coming to the CCC, the better. And if you, and I'm sure you guys have a very, large, strong, critical, mission critical ecosystem. If those, partners, suppliers, vendors, and others can come, then you can have, an impact on confidential computing
Yeah.
as a whole. So,
Right. Okay. That feedback is taken.
yeah.
With that, we're going to adjourn. I'm going to put some to-dos on the mailing list, so please keep an eye on that, and I will see you in a week.
Take care, Mark. Be
All
well.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all. Okay. Bye-bye.